Going to look at a couple of products from a brand that you may not be that familiar with. The brand is Acra. Acra shafts have been around for nearly 20 years now. And in terms of their products, the reason you might not be familiar with them is, whilst they're very well known on tour and to fitters, they are only available through a certified group of fitters and builders. So the key thing for Acra is they wanted to keep the quality of their products and the quality of the delivered build of the products as high as possible by only dealing with a small group of people who are able to fit and build on site. So you won't see these in the custom carts of the big brands. You won't see these in any online golf stores. You'll only find these where you can fit and test in hand and where they're built on site. So it's a very select group that they've stayed with over those 20 years, and they've stuck rigidly to that principle rather than going mass and just sort of selling, not selling out, but selling more widely. Historically, what Acra were known for was they produced some shafts where they're very high-grade materials, but getting responsive feeling shafts with very, very stiff torsional elements to the shaft. So able to keep that rotational stability very low, really keep a tight kind of dispersion-oriented, reduced twisting, but keep a responsive feel. The two generally historically haven't gone hand in hand. With the materials that we have now, it's easier to do. But that was something that was really quite unique when they first started, and the shaft, the SE80, one of their original series, was widely used on tour. And to get the combination of the two characteristics, pretty unique. That actually leads on to what they managed to do with the latest series. So we're going to look at the Tour Z series, and this is the Tour Z Gen 2, and they have the 6 and the 5. The 6 and the 5 are two slightly different lines and bend profiles. In this series, across the two lines, what they've done is taken the shafts 10% lighter. So part of that is upgrades in materials that allow them to go a little bit lighter, but get the structural rigidity that we've had in historical models, but that's only been achievable really with heavier materials. So that's with material upgrades through them. One of the things that Acra over the years has always done as well is no matter what the weight of shaft, whether it's a 50, 60, 70, 80 gram shaft, relative to the flex denomination, so Acra use a universal system of M3, M4, M5 for regular stiff and X. Whether it's a 60 gram, an 80 gram, a 50 gram, 100 gram, the actual playing frequency of the shaft is the same. So that's something that they managed to engineer several years back with one of their earlier models, and that continues through to this. And again, is pretty unique within all shaft companies, because normally when you go up in weight, the actual stiffness of the shaft goes up as well. Not so with Acra. So between the two shafts, the 6 series, this is the slightly more responsive one. So what we've got with the 6 series is a responsive tip, but a torsionally very stable tip. And what that does is it allows the shaft to have a little bit more recovery, keep a little bit more feel, launch it a little bit higher. So creating that higher launch with that rotational stiffness, which also helps to keep the spin down. So historically, as a design, it wasn't, by keeping the torque low, they were able to keep the spin lower than even they expected to. So actually, as a sort of spin killer shaft in previous models, it's done just that without being too harsh. It's offered in driver shaft, so driver shaft in 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 gram options. They do a specific fairway shaft and hybrid shaft model in each. So in the 6, it's a 75 gram fairway and an 85 gram hybrid shaft, as well as a driving iron shaft in 95 grams. And the principle is keeping that responsiveness all the way through. So I'm going to hit one with this, just describe the feeling, and then we'll move on to the 5 series and look at that. But this is one of those shafts where if players are looking for something that's quite a tight feeling shaft, doesn't want to feel like the shaft is overly responsive, but doesn't want that dead feel that historically you've had to go to get a lower spin, rotationally stiffer product. So the 60 that I've got here is at 61, 62 grams, where historically it's been up at high 60, 67, 68. So you've managed to get it that little bit lighter. And it's not quite as tip heavy as they've been in the past as well. So what you get from the shaft, a little bit of a pull there, but what you get from the shaft is a little bit of kick through the lower half. You can definitely feel that little bit of responsiveness. But with the firmer butt section, it doesn't feel loose. So you still get quite a tight feeling shaft without it feeling harsh or dead. So you can feel a little bit back from the shaft, has that little bit of kick, helps generate a little bit more launch, but that tightness at impact, it doesn't feel like it's working the ball left or kind of over twisting the shaft. So again, a shaft you can be really quite aggressive with. In terms of flex, the Acra, the Tours Ed series have always played very strong to flex relative to other models. So you can really get quite a lightweight shaft with a very stable feel. Switching in the 5 series now. So again, as with the 6, it's 10% lighter than previous models. So similarly at a 50, 60, 70, 80 gram, and they do a 100 gram version of this as well, which is an absolute brute. So if you get someone who's built like an absolute tank and wants something as basically heavy and as stable as possible, then there is one of those for you. The fairway shaft is also 75 grams, but then the hybrid shaft goes to 95 and the driving iron at 105. So in the hybrid and the driving iron, it kicks up a little bit heavier than the 6 series. So the main point of difference with this is it's designed really around a stiffer tip profile. So what they've done is used effectively strategically oriented high modulus materials, which basically means really top grade materials, to firm the shaft up in the best areas to reduce that launch angle. So it's designed around a lower launch, lower spinning profile. With that, it's a very stable tip, so that really feels like it hangs on through the ball. But it also naturally brings that balance point down the bottom end. So the 5 series, which has continued to be that lower launch product over the back through previous series as well, that's always swung a little bit heavier, and the same retains with these. But again, without being kind of hard dead shaft. So if you're looking for a product that's going to not be overly heavy relative to the number on the shaft, that's 6, 7, 60, 70, 80, but give a really stable tight feel, then this one certainly, again, for an aggressive player and somebody who's looking just to bring that top of the flight down a little bit, the 5 series really is one that's worth testing. So in comparison to the 6, so it suits me a little bit more having my own swing, having a bit more weight in the tip end. The whole shaft just feels like it clings on a little bit tighter. You know, whereas with the 6, you feel a little bit of, there's that bit of pop through the bottom of the shaft. This one, to be honest, is a shaft that kind of feels like you can give it everything that you're not, and it's not going to give out on you. So through the ball, real stability through that lower half. He says as he flips it over with his hands. But there's absolutely no left-hand side in this shaft at all. That's just a rotten swing doing that. I'm going to do one more there. But it also, by being stiffer in the tip, if I can put one decent swing on, what it does is it's not kicking the flight up. So slightly lower on the face, so pulled it down a little bit more, but it just brings the top of the flight down a little bit more over the 6 series. And for anyone looking just to bring the top of the flight down, that's a great product. So between the two, I mean, what you have from Acra are great quality materials, one. They've always used the best quality materials they can. And they have a couple of series, so they've got an RPG line that sits above the Tours Ed series in terms of costing and grade materials. But with the Tours Ed series, really where they're geared at is a stronger action. Definitely someone who likes that feeling of stability through the ball. But the 6 gives you something which gives a little bit more pop, a little bit more launch, a little bit more responsiveness, and doesn't necessarily require a kind of aggressive sort of pull on it. The 5, a little bit more balance on the tip, notably stiffer feel without being harsh and dead, but definitely something that just brings the top of the flight down and gives you a little bit more bottom end of the shaft to hit against. So anyone looking for really good grade materials and a top line shaft from a quality point of view, the one thing Acra do that I'm not aware of any other company doing as openly are custom colours. So with the Tours Ed line, what you can do is you can pretty much go to town with what colour you want on these. You pick a Pantone colour and they'll try and match it. The lead time's a little bit longer, but you can really pimp these up and make them individual. You can put etchings on them. You can put engineered for your name, or as long as it's nothing rude, they'll put it on there. But you can really customize these as well. So yes, lead times go up a little bit, but you can make that shaft your own, which is something that's very, very, very rare in industry. So Great quality products to look at. They've got a really broad line of products in the FX range, which is a slightly kind of softer profile, a little bit more responsive, a little kind of more mid-spin. Then they've got the Tours Ed and then the RPG above that. So they've got a broad coverage of products. And for a brand that you may not be aware of, it's a brand that you should really look out and test out where you can. So any of their fitters, anywhere you find the product, will be a quality operator. But certainly something to search out, and particularly the Tours Ed series for that stable feel, low spin performance.